Hey, everybody. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. We got a really special guest today with Donny McCaslin. He's excellent sax player. He's played with Bowie. He's got a bunch of solo records, and he's really, he's on the cutting edge of music as far as combining jazz and loads of other cool things. He's also one of the nicest and most thoughtful people I've met. So this is going to be a fun interview. And quickly, I want to just thank Tim LaFay for hooking us up. Thanks, Tim. We appreciate that. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button down there and the little emoji that looks like a bell. That helps us get recommended by YouTube. And thanks for your support. Quickly, let me tell you about Donny. Originally from Santa Cruz, California, he's a jazz saxophonist who grew up gigging with his dad's jazz ensembles, and he attended Berklee after that. He's been a sideman since the early 90s, playing on hundreds of records for artists including Dave Douglas, the Maria Schneider Jazz Orchestra, Bobby McFerrin, Sun Kil Moon, and many others. Starting in the 90s, Donny became a solo artist, and he has released 13 albums since that time. Dude, 13 records. That's pretty awesome, man. That's in a short period of time. That's pretty cool. And featuring some very heavy talent on all of them. He's also a 3-time Grammy nominee, twice for Best Improvised Jazz Solo, and once for Best Jazz Instrumental Solo. Man, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure, Craig. Happy to be here.
Is it a safe assumption that growing up with a musician father and you being so active in music at a young age that you knew that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it came together pretty quickly, actually. Just to give you a fuller picture, my parents were divorced, and I lived with my mother. But I would see my father once a week, and it was Sunday, and he would pick me up. I lived in the mountains outside of Santa Cruz in an area called Happy Valley. My dad would pick me up in the morning, drive me downtown, and on the mall, there was a Pacific Garden Mall there. There was an old courthouse that had been converted into shops and restaurants and a bar. And so out front, adjacent to the mall, there was a bandstand and a bunch of tables where people would sit and drink and hang. So for a kid who essentially lived in the country, it was kind of a pretty festive atmosphere.
Yeah.
And this is Santa Cruz, in the like late 1970s, early 1980s. So it's very colorful. The hippie culture was really prevalent. And anyway, I would help my dad set up his instruments, and then he had a little chair, and I would just sit on the bandstand and listen. It was when I was sort of too young to walk around on my own. So I would just sit and listen for hours and hours. They play, like maybe 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. So like a long gig, actually.
Yeah.
And it was a mixture of like Great American Songbook, jazz standards, Cal Tjader-esque Latin jazz, and then funky tunes like Mustang Sally, Mercy Mercy, that kind of R&B-ish stuff. So it was great, and I just sort of took it all in. And then when I was 12, I made an impulsive decision to start playing saxophone. And once I started, it kind of took over pretty quickly. And there wasn't a question, of what I was going to do with my life. A couple of years later, I got into high school, and I went to a tremendous high school. There was a tremendous high school music program, jazz music program. The band director's name was Don Keller, and he had been best friends in the Navy with Bill Berry, who played trumpet in Duke Ellington's band. And Bill had bequeathed him a library of Duke Ellington's music.
Wow.
He subsequently played like 4 or 5 days a week in jazz band in high school. And this is at a time, Craig, where those charts weren't easily available for high school and college bands like they are now.
Sure.
This was sort of before that all exploded. And so, how lucky was I to be in that situation? And so then, I'm 14, 15, and I'm taking lessons with the saxophone player in my father's band and another who's Brad Hecht, and then I'm taking lessons with Paul Contos, who used to play in my father's band. I'm playing 5 days a week in this great high school music program that has like a tradition of excellence. Like when I get into it, as a 14-year-old, I think myself and maybe one other person were the only freshmen who make it into the band.
Wow.
They'd already gone to Europe, a few years before, and they'd gone to Europe,
high school band.
Yeah, 8 years before that. So they were really dialed in.
Wow.
And in fact, there was a junior college, there still is, in the area called Cabrillo College, where Ray Brown, the trumpet player and composer, taught, and Lyle Cruz, who's a great educator. So I had access to all that. And as a high school student, I could audition for the junior college band. And I auditioned and I failed a couple times until I got a little better and I was able to make it in. But at the same time, the Kiwamba Jazz Center opened up in Santa Cruz. Well, this is about 1976. So that meant that every Monday night in Santa Cruz, there was a world-class jazz group playing. Like the first show I went to was Elvin Jones.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's a 12-year-old. And
Wow.
then a couple of weeks later, it was McCoy Tyner. And then, Art Blakey many times, Cedar Walton, Phil Woods, Dexter Gordon,
The greats.
access to. So it was amazing. It was amazing to grow up in that environment and just have all of these different opportunities to play. And then asking also, including my father's band, which was playing anywhere from, 4 to 6 days a week at this place called the Cooper House. And, so when I'm a 14, 15-year-old, I'm just going down on weekends and playing Saturday and Sunday. But I'm able to sit there and play for hours.
Wow.
Fortunately, my father was very supportive and forgiving. So I was struggling, when I'm 14, 15, only been playing a couple of years. It's not like I was tearing it up, and so but I had the good fortune to be able to just be in this environment where I could just kind of keep, playing over and over and sort of slowly learning. So it was a really, I could just keep going too, because, for example, Santa Cruz was a major touring spot for all the reggae bands. So as a kid, in addition to hearing jazz on Monday night, I got to hear Peter Tosh, Jimmy Cliff, Burning Spear, Mighty Diamonds, Black Uhuru, all these bands played in Santa Cruz. And I was a huge fan of reggae. Paul Jackson, the bass player from the Headhunters, the famous group, Herbie's group.
Sure.
He was living in Santa Cruz at the time. So a couple years later, I'm 16, and he knew my father and whatever, and I ended up playing in Paul's band for a while, and it was like one night a week. Yeah, it was crazy, and I didn't even know. I knew he was like famous or whatever, but I didn't even really fully realize how fortunate I was. And it was a really open gig. Like Paul was playing bass and singing and playing Casio, and there was a drummer and a trumpet player myself, and it was, really open. Like he'd say, we'll end up in Autumn Leaves, or we'll end up in Green Dolphin Street, and it would just be a real exploration. So I was, so fortunate to be playing like free music with Paul Jackson as a teacher.
He passed recently, didn't he? Like pretty recently, I think.
I don't know.
I think so. I hope I'm not speaking out of school, but I think he did. Yeah.
Man, I've wanted to connect with him, since then, and I just never had the chance. Okay. Well, so Santa Cruz was just a really fertile environment at that time, and it's not only, there was other musicians at my peers who are doing it now, like Kenny Wollesen, for example, great drummer. He plays with Bill Frisell's trio for many years.
Okay.
Plays with Sex Mob. Kenny, we went to junior high school together, and we went to this Aptos High School together. Jeff Ballard, who's played drums with Brad Meldau for years, and played with Chick Corea. And Jeff was a couple years ahead of us, or a year or something, and went to a different high school, but in the same area. So we were all, hanging, jamming, playing together, playing in my father's band. It was just a really, really great environment.
That's awesome. That's a few questions. How do you have your earbuds?
I don't, because it sounded like you could hear me okay, so I took them out because they weren't connecting.
Oh, they weren't? Okay, I thought it was louder. No worries. Couple of questions. So you had your 10,000 hours in, like, by the time you're 16.
Yeah, and I did read that book. About that, and yeah, it did happen.
Yeah,
at an early age, and it was helpful. And I can give you a little story, an anecdote about that.
Yeah.
You know, when a few years later, I was at Berklee College of Music, and Gary Burton recruited me to play in the student ensemble that was going on a jazz cruise. So I was maybe a junior in college, and, you know, I was nervous. And we rehearsed a couple times, and the songs were, you know, I was used to really stretching out over, like, you know, blues and impressions and taking long, you know, solos and just, you know, really exploring. And so suddenly with his group, it was, you know, different song forms, songs in different keys, short solos, and all the stuff that was, you know, I wasn't used to.
Not as fun.
Yeah, and I was struggling a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember the first gig, we got on the boat, you know, and it's like the opening day, and the boat's kind of rocking back and forth in Miami, you know. But we got on the stage, and we started playing, and I felt like I felt just so much more comfortable being on the stage and being in the heat of the moment. And I guess I think I probably played, you know, a lot more up to my ability than I had.
Yeah.
Gary said something after, you know, about that, and I thought, okay, this is connected, because this is what I'm comfortable with. It's connected to all the hours spent on the bandstand with my father's group and with my own groups. You know, Kenny Wallison and I, and Kenny Carr, who played for years with Ray Charles, guitar player from Santa Cruz. We had a band together, and we logged many, many hours playing. So all of that really, I think, helped me to be more comfortable when I ultimately was on stage in what felt like a higher pressure environment with Gary Burton.
That's interesting. Yeah. So that was your norm.
Yes.
Yeah, that was your norm. I get it. The other thing you said, I made an impulsive decision to play saxophone. Why was that impulsive?
Well, I mean, my father had been asking for years, like, hey, you want some piano lessons? Do you want to play clarinet? And I just kept saying no, because I don't know. I don't know. I was really into basketball. That was one thing. And
that's not common. You know that. This is very rare that you actually, Tim's pretty athletic, but you know, that's not a common thing that musicians and athletics, it's rare.
Right. Well,
yeah.
So actually that's how Tim and I met.
You're kidding, playing basketball?
Yeah. Yeah. Mutual friend through Zach Danziger.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah. We moved to New York, and Zach and I were playing this Monday night game with mostly musicians, and he brought Tim in. And so for years, before we ever played music together, we played basketball together once a week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, so back to, you know, the impulsive decision. Basically, I was in a photography class, and in junior high school, and the teacher, was not engaging, or I wasn't engaging, and it became, you know, they announced that it was the last day that you could switch classes, and my best friend from elementary school, Jeff Newman, was in beginning orchestra at the same period. So what I realized, I was not going to do well in photography, and it just wasn't working. And I knew Jeff was in beginning orchestra, so I switched impulsively. And then my father said, "Hey, you know, what instrument do you want to play?" And I said tenor saxophone without thinking about it. But in hindsight, I think it's because when I would listen to him as a child sitting on the chair, there was a saxophone player in his band whose name was Wesley Braxton, who was like looked the iconic hippie, you know, long beard, often wore tie-dye shirts, and he would play these solos that were emotional, and there'd be squeaking and, you know, these wild sounds. And, you know, I was just sitting there watching. There'd be people on the mall watching, dancing, a lot of people dancing. And it was, you know, it was just, I think it had this aura about it. And I remember looking in the bell of his saxophone once, Craig, and there was a pool of condensation with a cigarette butt floating in the middle of it.
You're kidding me.
You know, I mean, that's kind of gross, actually.
It is gross, but it's hilarious, man.
No, as a kid, you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So cool. So if I was gonna break it down, I think that it was his aura.
That's wild.
When it came, I said saxophone, tenor saxophone. I think it's from watching Wesley Braxton all those years.
That is really wild.
Yeah, because I wasn't even really listening. I was listening to jazz with my father's band once a week, but outside of that, for me, the first musical discovery was Chuck Berry.
Okay.
And when it was literally like hearing one of his songs on a compilation LP, and I had a leather jacket that had just been given to me, and I gave it away to this kid just to have the LP. Because
Wow.
I was so into it. So Chuck Berry, and then the Beach Boys. I was super into the Beach Boys. John Philip Sousa, marching band music. AC/DC, loved AC/DC. Highway to Hell, that first, I don't know if it's their first record, but it's the first one I remember with Bon Scott. Lead vocals. Anyway, that plus jazz was like my musical DNA before I started playing. So it wasn't like I was deeply steeped in the saxophone and I made the choice coming out of that. It was just, I think, Wesley Zora.
That's really interesting, man. Very cool. And then the last thing was, the name of the community was Happy.
Happy Valley.
Is that legit the name of it?
Yeah. So it's outside of Santa Cruz. And
Happy Valley.
Happy Valley. It's not even like a town. I mean, there was a volunteer fire department where my brother actually got his start, and he ended up being a career firefighter. But my brother got his start there. Happy Valley Fire Department, Happy Valley Elementary School. But that's about all I can tell you. I don't even remember. I don't think there was like any elected officials or anything like that.
Yeah.
Area.
That's so, I mean, growing up in the Bronx, I find that very funny. Like there was no Happy Valley similarity. Yeah. It's just like that sounds like, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't you want to grow up in Happy Valley? I mean, what the hell?
A lot different from the Bronx.
Correct? Yes. Happy Valley. I'd like to grow up there, right? I'd like to go there right now. I remember I bought these. I was actually in, do you know, what's the coffee shop on Bleecker? They're all over the place. Puerto Rico, Porto Rico.
But I'm not a coffee person, so
okay. There's a really old coffee shop on Bleecker Street. There's like 5 or 6 locations. I mean, the shop's like literally 100 years old, and they sell like cute little things in there. And I don't usually buy shit to put on my shelf because then I got to clean it. But I bought these things. I was there one time. It was called Happy Pills. And I said, I need these in case something happens. And I don't even know what happened to him, but I just had Happy Pills on my desk. I just thought why doesn't everything like Happy Valley, Happy Pills, Happy this, that's a cool story, man. That's awesome. Now I understand your current record. This is probably like, and we'll talk about that. Telling me all these influences, this was like brewing in you then, I bet.
Yeah. And I when I think back now on why things have gone, the journey, that's happened for me, I know, when I'm in the moment, well, I mostly try to live in the moment and just kind of follow my instinct, follow where it feels that, where that's leading, instinctually. But a lot of it is traced back to this broad DNA that I was exposed to.
Yeah.
In Santa Cruz. And, I left out another element, which was salsa music, which was,
wow.
I was in a salsa band as a teenager with like 8 horns, and that was my first exposure to clave and whatnot. And my love of that music has never waned. And I had a period later when I had moved to New York where I really got into, just studying, rhythmic language and rhythms of the folkloric rhythms of the Americas. I was playing with Danilo Perez, who's an incredible musician, and prior to that, Fernando Torres, who's an Argentinian composer who I worked with, and Fernando's music was all mostly based on Argentinian folk rhythms, and then Danilo, a lot of his music was based on Panamanian folk rhythms, but also Afro-Peruvian rhythmical language, Afro-Cuban musical language, African, all these different manifestations of African folkloric rhythms, and all of that. It just changed my life studying that music. And I'm not an ethnomusicologist or even pretend to be an expert, but doing what I did there for years just gave me such a deep appreciation and love for music, and how that language has spread, and how I see it in these different I don't know if genres is the word, but anyway, so that was something that I also first experienced in Santa Cruz, was playing over a vamp with a salsa band, and hearing Cascara and all that, and man, it's wonderful. So I was fortunate.
Let me ask you a question. You had a very unique confluence of things, like you were in the right place at the right time for what you wanted to do.
Yes.
How do you, if you look at it like this, how do you look at, when you look back at that, do you look at it that serendipity, like, is there a spiritual component? Is there just, well, I was where the universe wanted me? If you even think about that, how do you look at that?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess in some ways, I had a difficult childhood in some ways. So I guess, when I look back on it, I have to, it's a mixture, it's not, I don't look back on it with a sense of like, that was an Eden that I emerged from, a paradise, because what I'm describing all these really positive things, which were wonderful.
Yeah,
absolutely. But, but there was also things happening at the home that I grew up in, which were terrible and really dysfunctional. And that I've had to spend years working through and coming to terms with and finding through it. And it's been hard.
Yeah.
And so, I would say the way I look at it, Craig, is that music for me was this way to express my feelings at an age where I didn't have the English language skill to do it.
Sure.
Right. And so improvisation really was a way for me to try to process all this stuff that was going on that was out of my control and difficult. And I could pour it into this avenue of expression. And I think that was a lifeline for me and a saving grace that I'm super grateful for.
Okay, so now let me roll the clock back a few minutes. When I said to you, you must have had such a good childhood because you're so thoughtful. And generally, as you know, because you've obviously, based on what you told me, you've done a lot of work, right? And that's probably why I like you, because I'm the same. So generally, though, when somebody is thoughtful like that, it's born out of like a very, happy childhood, happy valley, happy childhood, right? It's not common. Now there are people that have, like you, like myself, that have, recognized this and say, hey man, I got to not be an asshole. Let me figure out how to do that, but by and large, so when I said that to you, you must've had a good chuckle with yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, it was, it's again, with, as it is with so many things in life, it's complex.
Yeah.
Because my parents were, my father loved me, and was so proud of me. My mother was super supportive, really loved me. Just, there was no doubt, I'm trying to think how to say this. Like, I never doubted that my parents' love for me.
Right.
And like that was there, but a lot of really, really, really poor decisions happened, and a lot of, stuff that was really negative, but so it's a mixed bag, right? Because I was able to benefit from my mother's care and all the things she did on my behalf, but also I really suffered under some of the poor decisions she made and places that she put me, and similarly with my father in just a different way. So like I for years, Craig, I call my dad and you just want to hear what I'm up to, and just, so proud of me and all that stuff. And it's beautiful, but also in some fundamental ways, he really failed me as a parent, and it's too bad. But that's part of the human condition.
Totally.
Perfect. And I don't, it's just, and they were the way they were because of their childhoods and their relationships with their, it's this, generational thing, but it's tough. I'm sorry to cut you off. Because you recognize that, like, there was no deliberate bad behavior, but it doesn't give you a pass. Absolutely right. And it's right. Like, I can understand, it's like we understand it intellectually.
Yes.
But emotionally, we're just like, what the fuck?
What the fuck are you thinking when you when you did this, and this, right? Like what was going through your mind like that? How did that thought even originate? You know, where,
okay.
Yeah.
How can that choice be okay?
Yeah.
So,
Right. I totally get that.
That's been that dynamic, I've had to wrestle with that. But yeah, when you said that earlier, it is, because I think, well, it's complex because it was, in some ways it was very idyllic, man. Having all this musical opportunity.
Sure.
And just, man, so fortunate, but in other ways it was terrible and soul crushing.
Yeah, I get it. No, I have so much even more respect for you now that I've heard that, because it's not easy to be so thoughtful and nice when you don't come from that. And I'm not saying your parents weren't thoughtful or nice, but when you don't come from that sense of safety, emotional safety.
Yes.
That's
so well put. That's so well put.
That's a big, well, because I've been so conscious of that, because I totally didn't come from that. And I've always like, with our kids, I mean, they're older now. They're 31, 30, and 21. And I speak, my two sons they live around the corner, but they're on their own. But I just was on the phone with my son for a half hour. And so I've always been like, I didn't know how to do it right, but I knew how to do it wrong. So I was just like, don't fuck this up, and because it's always been important to me. I didn't want to I didn't want them to be sitting in a therapist's office, or if they're going to, that's fine, but not because of me.
Yeah, I hear you. And it's interesting. I'm a father too, and my kids are younger, 12 and 9. But my wife, we were at dinner at a dinner party the other night with some neighbors. She has this funny. She says, I thought we were going to have jazz babies. Like,
she is.
Take kids out, and we go to shows, and then Donnie's like, and she's joking, and I'm laughing. My wife is just incredible. She's an incredible mother and woman, and I see I'm laughing because I'm telling them, because where I'm going with this, Craig, is like I'm very strict about bedtime, for example.
Yeah.
And it's we don't mess with bedtime. We don't mess with like eating a proper meal. And my response is because I'd never had those kind of boundaries. So I'm very much a stickler about where she did have those boundaries, and she had a great childhood. So she's a little looser with it.
Sure.
I'm not. I'm like, no. No jazz babies. You're going to bed. And,
no jazz babies.
So it's just a shtick we have together.
I totally get it. But I will say, for whatever it's worth, having parented now for 31 years, you're much better erring on the side of being too tough than too soft. Like when I say tough, I don't mean like, smacking them around. I mean like having stricter boundaries than looser boundaries. That's my observation on it.
And I appreciate that. And I firmly believe that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, what's going to happen? They'll be too responsible. I mean, they can't, it cracks me up. I see these people, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to let so-and-so decide. I'm like, she's 6. What? How does she have this knowledge to decide what's best for her? It's, and like, be a fucking parent, I know you don't want to make the decision, but she can't make the decision. So I get it, man. I'm going to write that down. I thought we were having jazz babies. I like that. Thanks for sharing all that. That was really cool, man. Thank you very much. You played Monterey Jazz Festival 3 years in a row when you were in high school?
Yeah. And basically, when I was a kid, they had a thing called the Monterey Jazz Festival High School All-Star Band.
Wow.
And so that was something you would audition for. And if you were chosen, you would go to the festival a week before it opened. And you rehearse all day with Bill Berry, who I mentioned earlier, the trumpet player. And then you would play the opening night at the festival, and then you would play the closing day, usually with a guest artist like Clark Terry or or James Moody or whatever. So that was one thing, and then also they would also choose like a high school band and a high school combo, and at the competition. And if you won either of those or both of those, you'd also get to appear. So I don't totally remember the exact chronology, but I think my freshman year. I don't think our big band won, and I auditioned for the band, but I didn't make it. But I think from my sophomore year on, that I was in the band, and that a couple of those years, the big band I was in, also played at the festival. And then I know my senior year for sure, my combo was also at the festival. So all of that to just say, it was a great, great, great experience.
Yeah.
Especially being in the band. Because you can, just being a kid, we're staying at a hotel right across the street from the Monterey County Fairgrounds. And we're rehearsing all day, and it's like all these really great players. You know, a lot of guys who I still, like Luis Bonilla, for example, from LA, is an amazing trombone player. He was on the road with Phil Collins last year before COVID happened. I mean, he plays with so many people, and he was in it. Larry Grenadier, incredible bass player. Kenny Wallison, who I mentioned, just tons of folks. So we're all hanging for a week and playing and, you know, carrying on. And then the festival starts, and we have passes. We can go to every show.
That's so cool.
Man, you know, again, as a 15-year-old, I'm seeing Elvin Jones again. I'm seeing Dizzy Gillespie's band. I saw maybe a couple years later, Wynton. I think it was maybe one of his first tours when Branford was part of the band, and Jeff Tain and probably Bob Hurst and Kenny Kirkland. I mean, it was amazing. And just having access, just sort of free reign. That's what it was. I free reign. Just running around. I mean, man, it was like the highlight of my life. And then you get on the stage, and you're again. So I've been playing with my father's band, as I mentioned, in my high school band. But you know, Monterey County Fairgrounds, and they opened the curtains, and there's like thousands of people out there.
That's cool.
Just you know, mind blowing. So yeah, that experience was tremendous. Can't say enough. And you know what happened? Jimmy Lyons was the artistic director when I was a kid, and then he passed away, and Tim Jackson took over, and Tim was one of the founding members of the Kiwamba Jazz Center from Santa Cruz. So Tim took over, and then over the last couple decades, the festival's expanded, and the programming has become much more diverse, and covers sort of all this broad spectrum of music, and they have all these different stages. I mean, it's my favorite festival, and every time I go, it's an emotional thing for me because of the history there, and the thing it was for me as a kid. And I played, the last time I played there, it was I think I did a couple gigs, but one of them was a tribute to Michael Brecker. And
man.
And I remember that, again, that the curtain opening up, and it was just, I felt connected to what it felt like when I was 15 years old and that happened. It was just such a total thrill, just so much, as so much hard work goes into doing what we do. I mean, the hours and hours and constant, examination and all of that, what should I be working on? How's this going? All that. And it's moments like those that really, this is why I do this.
Yeah.
This experience to be on stage with incredible musicians and the opportunity to create something different, the opportunity for some magic to happen and to let go and to be outside of myself and just in the music and in the moment and in community and communication with these people, having it go somewhere that's unexpected.
Is that harder to do as a leader? Because I know you're super responsible, and I would have bet that you're pretty meticulous about how you want things done, present, you're representing you, it's Donny McCaslin. This is the name on the banner. So everybody's got to be marching to the beat of what the drum that you want to present. Is that tougher having all that shit in the back of your head? And is it harder to be in the moment? Like, how do you, because I know that you are in the moment when you play.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great question, because that is the challenge for when you are a leader and you're thinking about or not thinking about, but you have all of that stuff on your plate, right?
Yeah.
How many people have come? Is the sound cool? Did everybody, like just a myriad of
hundreds of moving parts. Who got paid? Who didn't get paid? Who showed up? Who didn't? Right. The equipment. Yeah.
And that's the challenge is in those moments, can I let go of that kind of thinking and just really truly be in the moment and improvise? with the folks that I'm playing with.
Yeah.
And I strive for that. I absolutely strive for that. And I think there's, you know, of course now with COVID, I haven't played in a year and a half, save a couple of shows, you know, let's say, but for the most part, I haven't played live. So, but I think for the most part, I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
Even when I'm really busy, because again, for me, I'm orienting myself for that moment.
Yeah, I know.
All that stuff that we're talking about and all the other things, you know, that go along when you're on the road with, I'm trying to like set it all up so that when I hit the stage, no matter what's happened prior to that, I really can be in the moment, because I don't know if I'll ever have that moment again. And I'm fortunate and grateful to be in that situation, and I want to make the most of it, no matter what's happening or what has happened around me. You know, I never want to phone it in, and I never want to take for granted how special this opportunity is. So, and I think, you know, for me, I recognize, you know, I had a lot of experience as a side person, and I was working as a leader, and then, you know, after Black Star came out, my opportunities went up as a band leader.
That's fun. That's so great, man.
And so I was, thank you. And I was cognizant of, you know what, I'm fortunate that this has happened, and I don't want to lose sight of how special this opportunity is. And I want to, you know, to go back to like a beach or, you know, a California kind of analogy, you know, it's like riding a wave, and I want to ride this wave.
Yeah.
But I also, and I want to be in the moment on the wave, and just knowing how special it is, and who knows how long the wave is going to last.
Absolutely.
And just doing my very best to navigate it and keep it happening, to express what's in my heart, you know, about music and about life through music, and that's what I've striven for. And you know, sometimes I know it's fallen short. Sometimes there's been performances probably that I haven't been happy with the sound or this or that, you know, there's times where we miss the mark, but I know ultimately it's always been my intention to leave it completely on the bandstand every night, because I don't know if there will be a night after that. It's just the nature of our humanity.
Yeah.
We don't know. We can't control what's going to happen, you know, tomorrow, tonight, and our mortality.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally.
So I just go with that intention.
This guy told me about a couple of years ago, he said to me, a guy I've become good friends with, he said, don't be part of the results committee.
Mm.
He said, like you just said, do your intention, do what you got. But he goes, don't be part of the results committee, because it's not a committee you could influence. I mean, yeah, you do your work, but I mean, you know, I guess he was saying distance yourself from the emotion, you know, emotionally from the outcome, and then you're more likely even to have a more successful outcome. Not like don't do the work, but then like, that's it, you know, whatever happens, happens. And I was something about the way he said it, I was able to identify it. And I have to apologize, man. I'm embarrassed that I didn't even put about Black Star in your bio. Donnie's band basically was Bowie's band for his last record, Black Star. We're going to talk more about it, but I apologize, man. I'm so sorry. I don't know how I overlooked that, man. Okay. You went to Berklee. Did you move to the city straight after Berklee?
No, I stayed in Boston. I was playing in Gary Burton's band at that point. So, you know, the thing I described earlier was in my junior year, and then somewhere about a year later, he, you know, offered me the spot in his band. So I was playing with him, and I was living in Boston, and I stayed there for about a year and a half after graduating school, because he was based there. It's a year and a half, maybe 2 years, something like that. But that was the moment. Then I moved down to New York from Boston, and I was still in his band, but it maybe lasted another 6 months or so, and then I was freelancing in New York.
What made you move to the city, and also what did you do for work once you get there? It's not an easy place to, you know, I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think, you know, it was a lifelong desire to move to New York, number one. And, you know, being in Boston was great, but, you know, I just felt like I needed to move to New York because that's what felt like the epicenter of the music I was interested in, was in New York. So, and Larry Grenadier had come out and had joined Gary's band, and he was living in Boston, and he was going to move to New York.
That was a guitar player, I think you mentioned?
Bass player.
Oh, the bass player. Okay.
I think that was, you know, part of it too. I was like, okay, Larry's going. It's time for me to go, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot easier to go with a buddy to New York, especially. Yeah, man.
It is. And so I moved down there and I had saved some money, playing in Gary's band. And as I mentioned, I was still in his group for, you know, another 6-8 months or something. So I had some income. My sister lent me some money, and I moved down there, and I actually moved in with Jeff Ballard.
Okay.
And we were living way out in Sheepshead Bay, but we started looking for an apartment. And after a few weeks or something, we got one in Manhattan, and Larry joined us. It was Larry Grenadier, Jeff Ballard, and myself. And
where were you living?
We were living near the Holland Tunnel.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a loft, and it was crazy because we were on top of each other, but it was an amazing location.
Yeah.
So in terms of work, you know, at that point, this is maybe 1991, beginning of 1991. You know, I knew some folks who had moved down to New York already from college. So I connected, you know, reached out to everybody. And I met some people because I'd been touring with Gary's band. I knew some musicians who were already in New York. And then I just started, you know, going out and hanging. And, you know, there was just I was getting some work subbing for people, you know.
Which is common.
Yeah, friends like, oh man, okay, subbing on a big band rehearsal, a wedding gig,
yeah,
you know, this and that. So I guess initially, Craig, it was just this broad type, you know, different types of things, kind of whatever came up, and little cafe gigs, playing in a funk band, playing a blues gig, you know, playing with a composer where it's all through composed music and you're just reading. Big band gigs, swing gigs, free jazz gigs, like, you know, whatever. And I guess, you know, because I had a pretty open mind stylistically, it wasn't.
And you had the chops, and you were a sight reader. So I mean, man, that's
that too, which was really helpful.
Hell yeah.
So because of that malleability, I was able to just kind of do a lot of different things, and then also the cost of living in New York it was nowhere what it is now. So especially, you know, after about a year and a half of living in that loft, I moved out to Brooklyn, and my overhead went like down. You know, I was paying when I got to Brooklyn, you know, so this is maybe midway through 1992 or something. My rent was like $350 a month.
Oh my God.
Right. So
wow.
That was a student loan. And so then you're just doing a $20 gig here, a $60 gig here, a $200 wedding gig. I mean, it's not that hard to piece it together.
Yeah.
You know, and then I was playing just a bunch of sessions. And I mean, like jam sessions. In the jazz world, that's such a big part of how we put it together. So, you know, I was just constantly playing with people and, you know, getting to know more people and getting called for this and that. And so, you know, for me, it wasn't, you know, it was just a slow build, you know.
You said yes a lot too.
Oh, I said yes to everything.
Yeah.
It's coming from a environment where, you know, when I was a kid, we were on food stamps, you know, my, you know, I mean, there was, I grew up in an environment without any financial security at all.
Yeah.
There was financial anxiety that I grew up around. So, you know, and I still carry with me today the remnants of that, of like,
totally get that.
So in terms of how it affected me at that period of my life, I said yes to everything.
Yeah.
I just got to survive. And probably, you know, in retrospect, I said yes too much, but you know, whatever. Hindsight's 20/20, you know.
Well, plus two, you're making the mistake of being too financially safe. It's not really a mistake, but then you probably got to the point where you're like, I'm exhausted. I need to start saying no.
Yeah, and that's was, you know, as things got better and better, I was able to do that, and it slowly built into, you know, being a leader, you know, 50-50, and then you know, now primarily working as a leader. But you know, so it was that kind of evolution, and but yeah, for many years at the beginning, I was just trying to survive, and but then, you know, funnel that, like, okay, I don't want to play this bar mitzvah gig, but with that $250, I could, like, you know, that can help me to pay for this, like, to record some original music and stuff.
Right.
So I tried to keep that mindset, and you know, the dues gigs that I didn't like so much, I tried to use the frustration from that to, you know, like, man, practice more, write more, or whatever it was. I tried to use that as fuel to push me further.
Like righteous indignation is like a very healthy. I mean, I've done a lot with that as the pilot light, you know, it's a phenomenal thing at a certain point in time. But you know, what's interesting, the journey that you're talking about, and I don't know why they don't teach this in music school. That's the journey of every business owner, every entrepreneur. And you guys are all entrepreneurs. Don't necessarily look at yourselves like that, but you should. I'm not saying you, I mean, musicians should in general, but because that's when you start your own business, it's like, man, you say yes to everything. Everything, you know, and then you get to the point where, like you said, I don't really want to do that. So maybe I can cut it loose or not, but I don't know why that's not taught more, because I think it's an important part of, you know, of the life, you know, and it's, I wish people knew about it more for their own benefits. Yeah. Once you decided, what made you say, hey, I want to do my own thing?
Oh, I think it's something I'd always hoped for. You know, when I was a teenager, and I thought about what it would be like to live in New York, I always, you know, I thought about the heroes that I would want to get a chance to play with. You know, Elvin Jones, Freddie Hubbard, long list of people. But then also thought, oh, you know, in a perfect world, I would be able to also tour with my own band. So, because I think John Coltrane, who was my ultimate hero, you know, musically, had done that. You know, he played with Miles and Thelonious Monk, and then of course had this incredible, you know, life as a band leader.
Yeah.
So I looked up to him, and I wanted to do what John Coltrane had.
Yeah, that's really. Was there a component of? I only ask you this because what you said about your childhood. Was there a component of, I really don't like being told what to do?
I think there's not so much. I think it was more. There was more. It was a variation of that, which was like, you know, fuck the establishment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Same thing.
and people that are, but people who are like supposed to be your mentors, and are abusing that power.
Yeah.
It was that kind of. I don't know if calling that iconoclastic or whatever is right, but it was something around that.
Yeah. Interesting, because I hate being told what to do. I don't like have a desire to tell anybody else what to do, but I'm like almost allergic to it, to the point where I'm probably unemployable. No, I mean, I just don't want to be told what to do. Even if I'm not going to argue. You might be right. It's just not my thing, you know. Yeah. And it's very weird. Man, I want to talk about your last record, Blow. It's a phenomenal record. In fact, after I listened to it, I sent Donnie a text. I said, thank you so much for putting this out. It's a really great record. And it was awarded New Jazz Album of the Year by Jazz Japan. A bunch of questions. In your bio on your website, you mentioned that Bowie influenced the album quite a bit. If you could talk about how he influenced it, and maybe some of the biggest differences in you as an artist before and after working with Bowie.
Sure. Yeah. So with the first part of that question, I could say that, you know, after Black Star had come out, as I mentioned earlier, I started touring a lot more as a leader. So there was just a lot more time on the bandstand playing music. I put out a record called Beyond Now. We're playing that music, and I was thinking about, well, what's going to come next, and Beyond Now happened pretty quickly after Black Star, and was influenced by David for sure. And then there was this gap where I was touring a lot, and then thinking about Blow, and I think I had a chance to let things settle in a little deeper into my unconscious or something, because eventually what was happening was I wrote a couple instrumental pieces, and then I was hearing, voice and not sure how to incorporate that in a way, like, oh, okay, does that, and what I mean by that is like, oh, should I just write melodies and have somebody set it to lyrics, or should I this, or and what's the saxophone role going to be if the vocal role is in the center, and things like that. So I just wasn't really sure.
That's a tough question.
So yeah, there's this period of like, okay, well, this is what I'm hearing now, so let me just follow this, and the analogy I'll use is that it felt like it was just very, very different, and I felt like I didn't really know where I was going.
Yeah,
and I didn't have like a plan laid out. I didn't have a map. I didn't have a GPS. I was just like, okay, I'm feeling this, and I'm not quite sure how it's all going to work together, but this is what I'm feeling. So eventually, I was working with Steve Wall, who produced Blow, and I was, we were dialoguing, and I was just writing different things and sending it to him, and then we had some writing sessions together, and with Aaron Kanata, who's a great songwriter, singer in LA, and then I got connected with Ryan Dahl, who's an amazing lyricist, songwriter, producer, guitar player in Vancouver, and was working with Jeff Taylor, who's one of the circle of our friends of ours, who's played many years with Mark Juliana, and knew Steve Wall really well, and Jason Lindner. So I was working with those three guys, and just kind of seeing how it would all take shape. And eventually what happened was Ryan sent me back. I sent him Club Kid, like an instrumental version.
I love that song. It's so cool. It's so freaking cool.
Thank you. No, I mean, I do too. I love it. And for me, the moment of clarity was when Ryan sent me a demo where he basically, he took like the verse melody that I had programmed, and he, put words to that. But then on the chorus, he came up with a new vocal melody and vocal harmony, and it was totally killing. Like I heard that and I thought, okay, this is it, man.
Yeah.
This is, and that's, so I was, in this thing of trying to discover, couldn't see, and then Ryan sent me Club Kid, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm talking. This is it. And then from that moment on, you can kind of move forward a little quicker. But I'll say, like, even before I was going to go into the studio, I was not totally clear about the role of the saxophone, because at that point, lyrics were in place. Ryan had Great Destroyer was a tune that primarily his tune. I added a section or something, but that was something he sent me. New Kindness had come together. What About the Body had come together. I the Beholder, that was Aaron Kanata, Steve Wall, and I. That had come together. And Jeff Taylor had written lyrics to Tiny Kingdom, and I knew we were going to do that kind of punk piece that he could just freestyle on. So, all this is coming, but still the role of the saxophone and the woodwinds is still unclear. Anyway, long story short, once we got in the studio, it all sort of fell into place, but it was a long process, but it was exciting. But to your question, how this relates to David and some of the deeper takeaways for me from that experience, and it was this. I remember talking with him one time, and he was just saying, essentially, you're onto something when you're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I thought, and through this process of getting ready for Below, I was uncomfortable, right? Because the saxophone wasn't at the center like it had been on all of my previous recordings.
On like every saxophone record ever made by us, let's face it.
And I'm not even saying that from an ego place of like, well,
no,
do that, but more like, I don't even know what I'm going to do, but I believe in where the song is. I believe in the lyrics, blah, 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 blah. So that was a big takeaway for me, and how David influenced that was thinking, yeah, I don't know what's happening here, but I believe that it's going to work out, and he spoke to that with me. So that's that was one of the main things, and also just the courage that I saw him embody as he would shape shift through these different stylistic changes throughout his career.
Yes.
And so feeling like, that's something that I'd always believed in, but seeing him embody that was empowering, because it made me feel like, I'm just going to roll with this, and maybe people will react negatively to this or whatever, but it's something that I believe in artistically.
And I would imagine quite the opposite. It's probably been extremely well received.
I think it was.
Yeah, man. It's a great record.
Thanks, man.
Was it awkward? Had you done collaborations like to that extent before?
No, I hadn't. So it was.
Was it awkward?
It wasn't. It was
in the beginning.
Let's see. Yeah, I think I was trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
But with Ryan, I mean, he living in Vancouver, it was just sending him stuff, and then, waiting to see what he would send back, and then maybe I would change the form, and there was definitely like a back and forth, but it actually didn't. It felt pretty cohesive with him, because he's a great person and just totally in it for the art, and just a great creative force. So it wasn't. Yeah, and Jeff, living in the area, Jeff would come over, and he was totally game to get together and work on stuff and workshop stuff. And we did some gigs, like at the 55 bar in town, just like workshopping the music. And Jeff was totally down, which was awesome. So it wasn't, it wasn't too awkward, I would say.
Good.
It was pretty, it felt pretty organic, and everybody was really up for it. So
good.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, and kudos to you for being open to that, because this wouldn't have happened without it,
Thank you.
Yeah, man. I only say that because that's one of the big, from my stuff, it was like not being open to other people being involved, just because I didn't think that people did that. Not because I was like, well, I don't want any help. The help, when you're kind of like raise yourself, that just wasn't a word in my lexicon. So I would never think of absence. I just wasn't in like help. Like I don't mind helping somebody, but I never did ask. I just didn't think it was like on the SAT exam, help was not one of the options there for whatever reason. So that was the only reason why I asked, because it's hard to, if you do things a lot and you wind up, sort of raising yourself to an extent, that's one of the, at least in my case, one of the negatives that come about that, not getting help. Now I'm really great with getting help, but yeah, I was just curious about that. Talk about, I didn't ask you this, but how did you wind up connecting with David in the first place? And how did the whole Black Star thing come together?
It was through Maria Schneider.
Okay.
I've been in her band for years, and David had reached out to her about a collaboration. And when they were meeting at one point, I think he was asking her, or he was describing the rhythmic underpinning of this piece called Sue, or In a Season of Crime. And she said that, hey, she later told me that she just started hearing my group, and so she said to him, hey, you should, let me play you something. And she put on one of my records for him.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. Oh, so cool.
That's a hell of an endorsement. Hold on. Listen to this, David Bowie.
It's amazing. I mean, I'm forever grateful to her, not only for that, for many things. She's been a real strong supporter and an advocate for me throughout my many years of knowing her, and I love her dearly. So yeah, it was wonderful of her, and I think she then mentioned it again to him, and that's where it got started.
That's awesome. Very cool, man.
Yeah.
I had a question about the vocals and all that stuff. Again, congratulations for having the courage to do Blow. I think it would have been very easy to talk anybody to talk themselves out of that because it was so unconventional, so I really, pat on the back to you for having the courage to go through it. Let's talk about some of the tracks that I love on the record. Let's talk about Club Kid first. Man, what an awesome track. Tons of energy. And it was really cool to hear your sax playing what might normally be background guitar lines. At least, that's how I was hearing it. Well, as a guy who primarily listens to guitar, that's probably very not ethnocentric, but music centric of me to not think in terms of beyond that. But your solo through the entire outro was just awesome. I mean, it was, boom. Tell me something else. Tell me some more of the backstory of that track, or how some of that, your solo or whatever came about. It was really carried the whole thing.
I think when I initially came up with that tune, it was like the kind of the verse and the chorus. And I think I talked to Steve. I showed it to Steve Wall, and I think he suggested, man, you might want to add, one more section or something. And that's when the outro that you talked about, when it goes to C minor, came in. And in a way, Craig, to me, that's really kind of influenced by the meters.
Oh, okay.
I'm a big fan of the meters.
Yeah.
Good friend of mine, Andy Hess.
Yeah, I had Andy on the show, bass player.
Oh, really? Yeah.
The low end.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys have both played a fair amount over the years with Leo Nocentelli for the meters. So anyway, I appreciate that band so much. And
yeah,
I think that's the spirit of that section is coming from there. So, so then, so I added that section, and then it kind of had this overall form. And then, as I mentioned earlier, then connected with Ryan, and he put the vocal thing on it, which just totally blew my mind. And I thought, this is the greatest thing since Swiss cheese. Or
man, it's an awesome to be on a sax album. Come on, man, this is awesome. No one's doing that.
The whole thing with the layered harmony, the vocal harmony, it's so beautiful. And man, I just can't say how much I admire him and his creative spirit. It was just great. So anyway, so we had the song essentially in place, and then, we recorded it instrumentally, and then Ryan overdubbed in Vancouver. So when we were playing it down here in Brooklyn, and then, we got to that section, and it just happened, and it just felt great. I think it was the first take or maybe the second take. But it was just one of those things that happens, where the history between Tim, Mark Juliana, Jason Lindner, all that is there, and we just, got into some fun playing, and it just happened, and it happened quickly.
Great energy in that whole track.
Thank you.
Yes, really good. The opener, dude, this was one of the funnest tracks I've ever heard. So first of all, that's Sun Kill Moon vocal. What does he have against Tampa?
Well, so it's a true story.
I was in a Tampa airport. The whole thing was like,
yeah.
And the details are great.
Yeah. So how it happened, we recorded it as an instrumental.
Okay.
And Steve and I were talking about it, and I can't remember how it came to pass. I was like, man, it would be great to have a spoken word thing on this. And I was a Sun Kill Moon fan, and I had met Mark at some point in Australia through Tony Scher.
Okay, the bass player, Brooklyn.
Yeah. Who was touring with Mark at the time, and I'd sat in with him actually in Australia, and so just something came to mind. Like, man, Mark Kozlik, he'd be great on this. And the manager reached out to him, and connection was quick, and Mark was down for it. And his thing was like, just part of the parameter for him was like he didn't want us to edit what he said. And I think he said it was a short story from a group of short stories that he had. So that is from an experience that he had. And I remember talking to somebody, Craig, who heard the track, and they said, yeah, I was at that gig, and blah, 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 so.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it all happened.
So that's a legit thing where the opener didn't like him for that's so, And you know what makes it like when, you know, you ever see these cop shows and they ask you to tell you the story 10 times because if you change the details, I know you're lying. Everything about that was so nuanced and so detailed. I was like, this has to be true. I mean, it was so detailed.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the story.
It was like a Charles Bukowski. I was like, right. I mean, it was like, it was just awesome, man. I love that track. I listened to that like I was walking in the morning. I think I listened to that like my whole walk over and over again. It was just so cool. I had to hear everything about that track is great. The vocals, it was just, it grooves, you know, the great track.
The selection was great on that. Steve did an amazing job.
Fantastic. And then the last track, Eye of the Beholder, I just thought it was a really, you know, beautiful track. So well mixed. Your tone on your horn is very warm, man. It's like really perfect. And you know, Gail Ann Dorsey, what's there to say about her? You know, she's just a beautiful singer. And this just sounded like you, Gail, and maybe like a B3 or something.
You know, that's I'm trying to remember. It's Jason Lindner.
Yeah.
On I think it's Wurlitzer that he ran through some pedals. That could also be Steve. I'm pretty sure Jason played Wurlitzer on that. Steve might have done a little bit too. I know I did some woodwind stuff, some woodwind pads. Jonathan Marin's on bass on that.
Oh, I know him. I had him on the show, actually.
I think that's Zach Danziger. It's Zach Danziger on drums on that.
Okay.
Track. And it was very, when we recorded it, Gail wasn't there. It was just the four of us. And I know Steve, you know, really got in there with dealing with the drums and creating a loop and, you know, just masterful production. I love how that song turned out. And that was from the writing team of Aaron Kanata and Steve and myself that came out of that, which also Head of Mine, which is a single that came out later. It also featured Kanata of those sessions. And I just love how that tune turned out.
Your
tone.
Yeah, her voice, but your tone in there, it was just like, what you did. Not that your tone isn't normally good, but it was like special in that song or something, man. Is there anything?
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, it was,
you know, I don't remember. It was, we were just recording, you know, so, but thank you, man.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Donny, tell me top 3 musical experiences you've had and what made them so memorable.
Oh, okay. Well, one would be, one is I was touring with Gary Burton's band, and I was in Boston, and I think I had just graduated from Berklee, and I had gotten chickenpox. And there was a cross-Canada tour happening, and I missed the first week because I was essentially alone in my apartment with chickenpox, you know, for a week. But I'd recovered enough that I could make the gig in Montreal. So I flew up to Montreal, having not played in a week. And it was a gig at the Spectrum, which is a club that I loved in Montreal. And it was Gary Burton's group with special guest Pat Metheny.
Oh, wow.
And Pat Metheny, big hero of mine, man. You know, and just, you know, was so enamored with his music. And I just won't, you know, that night, it was just everything felt so connected. And I felt like it was, Pat just elevated everything, and everybody in the band was completely, you know, on it. And it just felt so great. And the crowd was, you know, freaking out. And
that's awesome.
It was just one of those, you know, Pat's playing guitar synth, you know, that, you know, the sound from Off Ramp, you know, and I was just like, this is so killing, you know. You know, so it was one of the, I remember that from my early years. That was a real highlight, and
that's nice, man.
Just amazing. I loved it. That's a memory. And certainly the experience of making Black Star, you know, is just an all-time highlight. And I think, you know, I've spoken about it a little bit earlier, and you know, I just follow it up by saying that the whole experience was really deeply affirming to me. I worked really hard to get the music together and to do these different woodwind things and all that, and just to have it happen so cohesive, have it be so cohesive from the start, and just to see how happy David was with it. He was just utterly happy with what was happening musically, and that meant a lot to me. And last time I saw him, I was listening to Blackstar for the first time a couple months before it came out, and we were talking, and he was so happy with how it sounded, and I thought that meant a lot to me for a myriad of reasons, but also as a musician thinking like, he's been in the middle of this record for 6 months.
Yeah.
All the mixes and the post-production and blah, blah, blah. Like, he was in the middle of all of that from what I can tell. And so for him to still feel that way about the record after having lived with it for months and months and months and a multitude of listenings, it really meant the world to me.
That's nice.
So those are two. I'm going to think of another, if another one sticks out. Probably there was one night when I was playing in Edmonton, and it was with Mark, Juliana, Jason Lindner. Pretty sure it was Nate Wood on bass, actually. And it was just one of those nights where it was an elevated stage, and the audience was really engaged, and it felt like we were just, everything was super connected. It was just one of the greatest nights musically. Yeah.
Nate Wood, is he the guy who plays with like Mark Lettieri, I think?
Well, Nate's an incredible guy. He plays in Knee Body, and he has his own project called Four, which is incredible.
Okay.
He plays with a bunch of other people too. I mean, Nate is a deep musician.
Bass player.
Well, drummer primarily.
Okay, I don't
Also
know.
plays bass. Also plays guitar. Also sings.
No.
Also write lyrics. Also is a great engineer.
Get out.
Also masters records. No, unbelievable. Ben Wendell's new record. Ben's a great saxophone player. Nate recorded it, mixed it, mastered it. It sounds amazing. And Nate Wood is.
That's wild. Wow.
Yeah.
Ben Monder played on Black Star, if I remember right.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah. How did you play? Have you played with Ben a lot?
Yeah. I should have talked about that. Ben and I have been playing for many years together. I met him when I first moved to New York at a jam session, and then he played on a lot of my records. We went to quartet with bass, drums, and electric guitar. Ben played on a lot of my records. He did a lot of gigs with me, for many years, and it was all just such an inspiring musician, gigs and tours and stuff. So, but prior to Black Star happening, I started doing this more electronica thing.
Sure.
And so it was kind of a different project.
Yeah.
It's in the mark. But trying to think how this went down. Basically, David met Ben because he played on the Maria Schneider piece that I played with. So we were in the Season of Crime, and then he wanted a guitar on the record, and I was like, "Yeah, Ben Monder."
Yeah.
No problem. So I got a story for you though.
Yeah.
So really quickly, so Black Star was essentially 3 different periods of recording, like a week in January, a week in February, and 4 or 5 days in March. So the first 2 periods was just Jason Lindner, Mark Julian, and Tim Lefebvre and I. And then the last one is when Ben joined. So we're, setting up, or I don't know, we'd already set up, and I think it was the first day, we're just getting ready to record, and Ben's like practicing. Ben is one of the greatest musicians now.
He's a phenomenal.
So he's practicing some
player.
shit. So it's unbelievable. He's playing, he's just warming up, and David says, "Could you come to my bedroom and do that for me?" Could you come to my home? I mean, I don't say bedroom, but could you come to my home and just do that?
Yeah.
And because it was just, he was playing some of that stuff with delay, and it was so Craig. It was so beautiful, and David was David loved it, and I remember Ben. I know that's something that Ben is special to Ben. You know that David said that, and it was completely like, you know,
That's cool, man.
yeah, it was beautiful.
Funny story about Ben. I had him on the show, and you know, at times, you know who Stephen Wright is, the comedian?
The comedian. No, I don't.
He has this like deadpan delivery, and like Ben's kind of like that at times. So I was on the phone with him. We're setting up his interview. He goes, Craig, I just want you to know, he's just like very monotone. And he goes, I had another podcast and they didn't publish it. I was like, listen, don't worry about that. We're going to have a blast. We'll have a laugh. Don't worry about it. And we did. It was great. It was a ton of fun. It was, he was like animated. It was great. He's an amazing player, but it was so funny. But he was like, they didn't air it. He was like, I said, don't worry. Well, that won't happen, Ben. We'll have fun. And he's a good guy. I've talked to him a couple of times, actually. Anyone you haven't played with yet that you'd like to play with?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, so many people. Wow. Let's see.
Let's put it out there, man. Universe is waiting.
Well, I think there's some folks who've passed on. I wish I could have played with McCoy Tyner. I mentioned Elvin Jones earlier, and Freddie Hubbard.
Oh yeah.
Cedar Walton. I wish I could have played with him. Okay, people that are living, of course. I mean, Herbie Hancock.
Sure.
One of my heroes. Wayne Shorter, who is now retired, sort of from performing, but I'd love to play with him. Roy Haynes is one of my all-time heroes. Jack DeJohnette, incredible. Dave Holland, John Schofield.
He's in New York, isn't he? Schofield?
I think he lives in Connecticut.
Oh, okay.
In the tri-state area.
Yeah.
Gosh, who else? I mean, I like so many people.
That's good, man.
Man, let me think about that. Who I haven't played with before, right? So
yes.
Jeff came lots. I played with Jeff. Amazing. Yeah, I guess I did play with Bill Frisell briefly because I love him too. He's so great.
Did you play with Greg Leese?
No, I haven't played with him. I'd love to play with him
because he plays a lot with Bill.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. Okay.
I love Alison Krauss.
Okay.
And then there's people in that world like St. Vincent, who Tim's playing with here and there. Mark's playing with her now. Rachel.
Yeah.
Her. I like St. Vincent. David Byrne, I like a lot.
He's in the city, I think, isn't he?
Yeah. In the city. David Byrne. Of course, I love Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
It's so killing. I'm sorry, Craig. That's just such a.
No, it's cool. I know it's like
so many people, and I just, But
I could see you playing with David Byrne. He rides his bicycle to the studio because he's always on his bicycle.
Be down with that.
What's the last music you listened to?
Oh well, I've been actually Tim and I have been writing a song together. So this morning I was listening to a new version that you sent me, and I was thinking about that. So yesterday there was a lot of working on a few different new songs. In terms of somebody's record who's not my own, let's see. I listened to the radio this morning, and it was
like actual radio, like FM radio or Sirius radio.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of Robert Parker because there's a radio show on WKCR in New York City that Phil Schaap plays his music.
Oh, cool.
So I'm up because I have kids, so I'm listening to that constantly. Man, full-length, let's see, record. I don't know if I have a good answer for you because Charlie Parker on the radio, or there's something else this morning that's really killing. Oh, it was John Coltrane.
Right on.
But yeah, other records that I've been listening to. Let me look at my phone. My phone's right here. Let me look really quick.
There you go.
Let's see. Let me see what's on my playlist, so to speak. I recently played. What have I been looking at? Well, I've been listening to Frank Kimbrough, who's a piano player that I played with for many years in Maria Schneider's group, because he passed away recently, and there was a recording that was like documenting a bunch of his music. So I was listening to some of that. I was listening to Branford's record called "The Secret." Was that Secret Between the Shadow and the Soul? Recently, I was listening to some Branford's record. What else? Recently, that might be kind of it, because I have been in this original music zone.
Sure.
Messing with these demos and stuff, and I don't listen to too much sometimes outside of that, because it
yeah, you don't want to cloud.
Yeah,
totally. Give me a what's your top 3 Desert Island discs? Knee jerk reaction, just for like this moment.
Love Supreme. John
Okay.
Coltrane.
I knew you were going to say that one.
Live at Newport, like 1965 or something, because Diminuendo and Crescendo and Blue, Paul Gonsalves plays this like really long solo that's totally killing. It's incredible. Okay, number 3, knee jerk is I'm like Tower of Power, Live and in Living Color, maybe some James Brown, something, or what else? James Brown. That's what comes to mind right now.
No, that's cool. Do you have like a worst gig ever story?
Ooh, I don't think so. I've had plenty of best gigs, but yeah, can't remember. Nothing in particular comes to mind.
Nothing jumps out. No, that's cool, man.
I don't have one with like a good story or anything.
That's cool. Tell me, Donny, we all pay tuition in our careers. I was wondering if you're comfortable, if you could share 1 or 2 mistakes you made along the journey, and what were the lessons you learned?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's see. Mistakes. Because the first thing I was going to come up with was like practicing ideas, but that's not really. Does that work for this category?
What do you mean practicing that?
Like there was periods where I practiced things that I didn't need to, and if somebody would have told me, "Oh, hey, do this instead," I probably would have gotten more.
Interesting.
Time. So that's not like a career thing so much as a development thing. Okay, I guess I would say in terms of career mistakes. I mean, I think part of it could be, I think I could have let go of working and focused on my own thing a little bit more at a certain point. So
like earlier, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the mistake was at a certain period, maybe working a little too much and being a little too controlled by the anxiety of not having enough money to provide for my family, and giving myself a little more headspace to dive into things that ultimately I wanted for myself.
Yeah, that is a tough one, man.
It's really tough, man.
I've been guilty of that. And in hindsight, I wish I had let it go so much, because I worked so much, and I'm like, I should have gone on vacation, something,
Right. Yeah. So that's one thing. That's another is, gosh, mistakes. I think sometimes, like I'll figure that the sound is going to be cool, and at a gig, instead of maybe going out for a while, once we started playing more shows, I'd be like practicing while the band was setting up and the sound men were getting sounds, and sometimes it'd be fine, but sometimes, it wasn't going as quickly as it could have, and I realized, okay, that's a mistake. Like, I should be out there in front of the house trying to do whatever I can to make the sound check go quicker,
right,
to get it closer to what we want, and not just trust that it's going to work out. So that was a mistake that once I realized that, I stopped practicing
Yeah.
on sound checks, and I just go out there and I'm out there the whole time, just trying to make it smoother for everybody.
Is that like one of those not fun things for you? Because I have, like it's stuff that it's just like admin or something that it's like, who the hell want, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Best decision you ever made, Donnie?
Probably marrying my wife.
Awesome. How long have you been together, man?
Together maybe 16 years. We've been
Good for
married
you, man.
years, but together for like 20.
It's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Tough question, man. What do you like most about yourself?
Oh man, that is a tough question. That is a tough question. Oh my gosh. What do I like most about myself? Gosh, I'm not sure. I never think about that. You know what I want? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like, it would actually be weird if someone said, "Oh, I think about that all day long." Let me tell you.
That I think I'm kind.
Yeah, man, you are.
To a certain extent, I definitely am angry and I get pissed and so on and so forth. But I think for the most part, especially when I'm dealing with people, I try to be kind and compassionate and, not be a dick.
Yeah, man, you got my vote on that. You're definitely. This might be a tough one. Best childhood memory.
Oh, well, probably, some of those gigs I mentioned, like being at the Monterey Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
That was incredible, so great. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Most important thing your dad taught you?
Well, my dad was like, as I mentioned, he was so supportive and so just so supportive. And I think he said, you become a musician because it's what you love, and it's what you don't do it to make a lot of money. You don't do it because you think you're going to have a lot of success, but you do it because it's what you feel like you need to do. And that's held true for me, and I appreciated that. And he said it repeatedly over the years, especially when I talk about the struggles or whatever.
Yeah.
You kind of go back to that, and I think he was totally on point. This is something that you feel called to do, and I talk about it with students sometimes, like, hey, you wouldn't be here if you hadn't had some sort of experience that changed you in the core so much that made you want to pursue this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How about your mom? Most important thing she taught you?
Oh man, my mom. Yeah, let me just think about that for a second.
You got a big old smile on your face, so that's a good sign.
Yeah. There's various things. Yeah. No, I just think, because you think about it, and I think about myself now as a parent and things I learned from her and from my father, that I do, that influence that I impart to my children.
Yeah.
I was talking about all the things that were so difficult earlier. We were talking about there's all these positive things too, and I was telling you what a hard ass I am about getting my kids to go to bed. I'm also a hard ass about like brushing teeth and flossing.
Well, you have great teeth, Donnie. I have to tell you so.
but I have to I'm always a dentist, But my mom was always on me about that in a cool way, and on my kids about it. But I wouldn't say that. I think for her it was my mother was she was extroverted, and she was in customer relations, when she worked, and so part of what her thing with me was like, it's important to essentially be cool with people.
Yeah, be service oriented, sort of.
Like it's important to be able to talk to people and be cool and not that kind of thing. And so I think about it, when I'm with my kids sometimes and we're talking to musicians, I'm like, hey, look them in the eye, you're 9 or whatever, you can look an adult in the eye and you can speak to them clearly. And anyway, so something like that. Yeah.
I don't often ask this, but I want to ask you, has your life been different than what you'd imagined?
Yeah, I think, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was talking to you earlier, like when I was a teenager, dreaming of like, I want to tour with my own band and tour with McCoy Tyner and Alvin Jones, and and so um, those things didn't happen. But I think
Well, they didn't happen with those people, but they happened.
they happened. But
Yeah.
I dreamed about that stuff, but I didn't know if it would actually happen. So I would say that, yeah, the fact that that stuff happened, and of course the thing with David, it's still, I guess, like, I'm not, when it was happening and even after it, I'm not somebody who's like thinking much about like, wow, Black Star sold X amount of copies and X amount
Yeah.
of people heard. Like, I don't think, I'm just like, what's the music? Like,
Yeah.
song, let me focus all that other shit. I don't want to be distracted by it. But okay, if we're looking back on it now, like, I never would have thought that I would play it on, on something that had that kind of reach.
Yeah. What
So,
was, how many, I mean, how do you measure that now? Is it how many sold or how many downloads or?
I mean, at some point somebody had said a couple million, but I don't know. Craig, I don't even know if that's vinyl or CDs.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's reached a lot of people and
Yeah.
far surpassed anything I could have imagined being a part of as a kid, if that makes sense. And so that was unexpected. And yeah,
It's nice, man.
occasional stuff. I mean, in my personal life, yeah, I guess also being, um, in some ways, I'm the primary. I mean, my wife is super involved, but with COVID and everything, I've also been super involved in parenting. I have been from the beginning, but just, I don't know. I don't know if I'd really thought that through when I was younger.
Yeah.
To be really doing that.
That's cool, man. Do you have any, I'm sorry, was that?
Well, I said thanks.
Oh, uh, hobbies or interests outside of music, Donnie?
Yeah, I mean, I'm into sports. I love basketball.
The
I thought,
Knicks.
well, I'm hoping for the Knicks, but man, I'm a Warriors fan
Oh, okay.
from the West Coast. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah, I'm rooting for the Knicks.
Yeah.
I love the Nets. I live just about 15 minutes from Barclays.
Oh,
Minutes.
cool.
So love the Nets. I like a lot of teams. I'm a, but in terms of, my favorite would be the Warriors, of course. So sports is a big thing. I love to read. Yeah.
Favorite place you've traveled?
Ah, tough question because I've been fortunate to go to a lot of different places. Probably somewhere in Europe, somewhere in Italy or something like that. But nothing particularly stands out.
Three more questions, man. Toughest decision you've had to make or most difficult thing you've had to do?
Hmm. 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 Toughest decision. Toughest decision. Hmm. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Fair enough. It's all
Sorry.
good, man. No, it's all good.
Nothing's coming up.
Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much is a natural part of aging?
Yeah. I think I'm maybe a little bit mellower, and it's probably partly intentional. I've been meditating more. COVID has happened, of course, so dealing with all that, and I've seen some of my I'm able to see some of my patterns from a little bit more perspective. So maybe not quite as caught up in them, or when I am caught up in them, I can go to like, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this to kind of dispel the.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think most people I've talked to, as shitty as COVID's been from a business perspective, for musicians especially, most people I've talked to have really sort of decompressed a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Through COVID. I mean, that's it. Any final words of wisdom?
No, just let's see. I'm thinking about that. I don't know that. I guess I would say, that what we have now is we have this moment that we're in, and we can't control the future, and we can't change the past, so all we have is now. And I'm always thinking about like, oh, this gig and this tune and blah 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 blah. But I'm trying to also realize that it's just right now, and
yeah, man,
and just to live like that's all I have, and to roll that way.
Right on, man. Thank you. Hey, thanks for everything. I really appreciate it. I was looking forward to talking to you, and you delivered, man. So thanks for everything, and thanks for making some great music, and thanks for being such a kind, nice person. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Let me tell people where to find you. It's Donny McCaslin. Donny's last name is McCaslin. Couple of things. Go to his website, donnymccaslin.com. He's got a great website. I would love everybody to give Blow, his last record, a listen. It is really, really cool. If you're pressed for time, my favorite songs are Club Kid, the opener, and Eye of the Beholder, but the whole record is really phenomenal. He's done a great, great job of making a sax record, but not a conventional jazz sax record. It's a very good album, and I'm looking forward to other stuff you have coming out. Subsequent to Blow, he had 3 really cool singles come out. One is called Head of Mine / Tokyo with Gail Ann Dorsey from Bowie's band. What a beautiful voice. And Gail was on the show if you want to check her show out. Circling is another one of the singles featuring Rachel Eckroth. And Reckoning is another single as well that came out recently. So check those out. They're all available wherever you want to download or stream or buy music. And I think you can get them through your website as well, right? Or get there.
I think I think you can get there, and then it might take you there. If you
just go to wherever you listen to music. Donny McCaslin. Also, you can find Donny on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Every Tuesday he does a thing with flossing, if you're into that. And then if anybody wants to work with Donny on some of your tracks that you're recording, go to his website, donnymccaslin.com, and there's a contact form there. You could reach out to him. Obviously, I hope I don't need to say this, but give him a link with some of the music. What are you looking for? Why do you think he's a fit? And he's a very sharp guy musically, not just as a sax player. So I'm sure there's a lot of value there. Anything else? Can I sell anything else? Do you have McCaslin floss?
That's it. No flossing yet, but there's new music on the way. There's a lot of music on the way. So
awesome.
I would say stay tuned, and I'll be coming out with some music soon.
Awesome. Where's the best place? Where'd you post on your socials?
Yeah, socials and my website.
Awesome. Again, Donny McCaslin, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Man, thank you for everything. I really appreciate your time. It was really good talking with you. I look forward to seeing you play sometime, either down here or when I'm in the city. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels, and thank you for your support. Thanks very much to Donny McCaslin for being such a great guy and a good hang. Again, go to donnymccaslin.com. If you want to work with Donny and have him play on your record, he's available for tracks. Just, he's a busy guy. Give him the information he needs. Please check out the Blow record. It's phenomenal. He's got the singles that just came out, and as he said right here, he'll have new music, and you can find him on the socials. And most important, man, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice. Go play your guitar or your saxophone and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. Brother, thank you so much for everything, Donny.